Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be exploring the world of traditional Indian dolls.
Ooh, that sounds so cool.
I know, right? And we're going to be taking all our cues from a book called The Enchanted World of Indian Dolls,
Oh, wow.
written by Avantika, an author from Gujarat, India.
I see.
So before we get into all the fascinating details about these dolls, I want to ask you, what comes to mind when you think about Indian dolls?
Well, honestly, the first thing I think of is color.
Yeah,
Vibrant, dazzling colors.
absolutely. And it seems like that vibrancy is like a huge part of Avantika's book too. She talks about how her love for classical music and dance led her to explore historical temples, sacred sites all across India.
Ah, that makes sense. So her inspiration is rooted in those experiences, those emotions she felt while exploring her culture.
Exactly. It's like those experiences fueled her desire to capture and preserve those stories, those feelings. But I'm curious, why dolls? Out of all the art forms, what drew her to this one?
Well, from what I've read, she saw doll making as a way to bridge the gap between the past and the present. It's about preserving those traditional narratives, but making them accessible to modern audiences. Like bringing them to life in a way that people can connect with.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about preserving them in a museum or a book, it's about making them relevant and engaging for people today.
Exactly. And she actually takes it a step further by including DIY instructions in the book, encouraging readers to create their own dolls.
Wow. That's amazing.
Hmm.
It's like she's saying, hey, don't just read about these amazing traditions. Get your hands dirty, experience them, bring them to life.
Yeah, exactly. I love that approach. It's so much more interactive and engaging.
It really is. But, okay, with 12 states and countless doll-making traditions, where do we even begin?
Well, how about we start with a region known for its incredible natural beauty? Assam in northeast India, it's famous for its lush landscapes and the Brahmaputra River.
Oh, Assam appeal.
I think it's a great starting point because their dolls are so unique. They craft them from river clay.
River clay. Really?
Yeah. And it's not just a random choice of material either. It reflects the deep connection that people have with the Brahmaputra River.
I see.
They even use a special technique to give the dolls movable limbs.
Movable limbs. So they're not just static figures?
Nope. It's like they're dancing,
Yeah.
almost as if they're mimicking the flow of the river itself.
Oh, wow. That's so cool. So it's not just about representing a figure, it's about capturing the dynamism of life along the river.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little snapshot of their world.
This is fascinating. Okay, so we've got Assam and their river clay dolls. Where do we go next on our doll adventure?
Let's switch gears completely and head over to Rajasthan.
Rajasthan.
Famous for its vibrant colors and majestic forts. And their dolls.
Well, think Kathputli. Kathputli. Okay, you're going to have to explain that one.
They're intricately crafted wooden puppets, often adorned with the most vibrant costumes you've ever seen.
Puppets. Okay, that's totally different from the river clay dolls.
Right, and these Kathputli, they're not just pretty to look at.
What do you mean?
They come to life through these incredibly skilled puppeteers. And the stories they tell, oh my gosh, they draw from Hindu mythology, folklore, epic tales. It's a whole performance art woven into these dolls.
Wow. So we've got river clay dolls, wooden puppets. I'm starting to see just how diverse this tradition really is.
And we've only just scratched the surface. Wait till you hear about the Sikki grass dolls from Bihar.
Sikki grass. What even is that?
It's this type of golden grass that grows abundantly in the region, and they use it to create these delicate and intricate figures. It's pretty amazing to see.
That's incredible. It seems like the geography and natural resources of each region really influence the artistic expressions.
Yeah.
It's not just the materials, right? We've also got a huge range of techniques.
Oh, absolutely. In Gujarat, where Avantika's from, artisans use this technique called mirror work to embellish their dolls. Tiny little pieces of mirror embedded onto the doll's attire.
Mirror work. That sounds stunning.
It is. It creates this dazzling, shimmering effect. And, it really reflects the vibrant and festive culture of Gujarat,
I can see that.
where bright colors and intricate designs are just celebrated everywhere you look.
Okay, now I'm really starting to see the artistry involved. It sounds like these dolls are almost like miniature works of art, each one representing a unique piece of Indian culture.
They really are. And the cool thing is that it goes even deeper than that.
What do you mean?
It's not just about the craftsmanship, there's a whole layer of meaning behind these dolls. a deeper cultural and even spiritual significance that Avantika explores in her book.
Now that's what I'm really interested in. It's one thing to appreciate the craftsmanship, but it's another to understand what these dolls represent, what they symbolize. What kind of insights does Avantika offer on that front?
Well, one thing she emphasizes is that these dolls are often seen as more than just toys. In many regions, they're considered sacred objects, imbued with symbolic meaning.
Okay, I see. Like they're not just meant for play.
Right, and they're often connected to specific deities or beliefs.
Can you give me an example?
Sure, let's take the dolls from West Bengal. Often they're associated with the goddess Durga, a powerful symbol of feminine strength and protection.
Durga? Oh yeah. She's a major deity in Hinduism.
Exactly. And during Durga Puja, a huge festival in West Bengal, these dolls aren't just displayed.
What do they do with them?
They worship them. People believe that the goddess Durga actually resides within these dolls during the festival, like imbuing them with her divine power.
Wow. So it's not just a representation of the goddess, there's a belief in an actual spiritual presence within these dolls.
Exactly.
I see a pattern emerging here. These dolls aren't just decorative items, they're active participants in religious and cultural practices.
Yeah, it's like they're a tangible link to the spiritual realm.
That's really cool. But I'm also curious about the social insights we can get from these dolls. We've talked about spiritual beliefs, but do they also reflect the social customs and values of different communities?
Absolutely. Let's take Punjab, for example.
Punjab, okay.
A state in northern India known for its agricultural heritage. There you might find dolls depicting farmers and their families.
Oh, so they're like little reflections of everyday life.
Exactly. They show the importance of farming in their way of life.
It's like looking at these dolls can give you a glimpse into the daily routines and occupations of people in different regions.
They're like little windows into different cultures, capturing everything from spiritual beliefs to social structures to daily life. Isn't that amazing?
It is. It's amazing how these seemingly simple objects can hold so much cultural and historical weight. But I also want to talk about the hands-on aspect of this book. We've covered the materials, techniques, symbolism, but how about those instructions? Are they easy to follow?
That's one of the things Avantika did so well. She made these traditions accessible to everyone. She adapted the traditional techniques for modern materials, and her instructions are clear, concise, and well illustrated.
So even if you're not a master craftsperson, you could potentially create these dolls.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She covers everything from selecting the right materials to those intricate finishing touches.
Wow, she doesn't miss a beat.
She really doesn't. But she also emphasizes that it's not about achieving perfect replicas, it's about the process, the creativity, and the personal connection you forge with the craft.
That's a really nice way to put it. It's not just about the end product, it's about the journey of learning, exploring, and expressing yourself through this traditional art form.
Exactly. And that's something that really resonated with me as I was reading the book. There's this underlying message about keeping these traditions alive, not as museum pieces, but as living, breathing expressions of culture.
I completely agree. It's about honoring the past while also breathing new life into these traditions for future generations.
And allowing them to evolve.
Yes, exactly. But we've only just begun to explore this fascinating world. There's so much more to uncover.
So much more.
All right, well, let's take a quick break and then we'll dive back in.
Sounds good to me. I'm ready for more.
All right, so we talked about all those different materials and the techniques and the symbolism behind these dolls.
Yeah.
But I'm still thinking about this whole idea of them being more than just toys. Like this deeper cultural significance that they hold.
Yeah. It's like dolls are a reflection of the society that creates them.
Ooh, that's interesting.
They really embody those values, beliefs, even the anxieties of a culture.
Okay, so then what kind of values or beliefs do you see reflected in these Indian doll traditions?
Well, one of the things that Avantika keeps coming back to is this idea of family and community being so central to Indian culture.
Yeah.
And you see that reflected in the dolls themselves, right? They're not just individual figures.
What do you mean?
A lot of times they come in sets.
Oh, like families.
Exactly, depicting entire families or scenes from daily life. It's not just about the individual.
Right, it's about the interconnectedness.
Exactly. And that also ties into this whole idea of respect for elders.
Oh yeah, that's huge in Indian families, right?
It is. Grandparents play such a central role in raising children, passing down traditions.
You see that in the dolls.
Yeah, totally. You often see dolls depicting grandparents.
Really?
Yeah. Or even entire family units with multiple generations. And it's not just for play, These dolls are often displayed in homes.
Oh, like as a sign of respect.
Exactly, honoring the elders, acknowledging their importance in the family structure.
That's really cool. So we see family values, respect for elders. What about the role of women?
Oh, that's an important one, especially since we talked about the goddess Durga.
Right, in that celebration of the divine feminine.
Avantika really delves into this. She talks about how dolls are often seen as a way for girls to learn about their future roles.
Like as wives and mothers.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're these miniature models for the roles they're expected to fulfill in society.
That makes sense. But it's not all about domesticity, right?
No, not at all. She also points out how some dolls, especially those associated with goddesses,
Yeah.
they showcase women's strength, power, their agency.
So it's like a mixed bag then.
It is, reflecting the complexities of women's roles in Indian society. They can be about those traditional expectations, but also symbols of empowerment, divinity.
Right. It's fascinating how these dolls really capture that whole spectrum.
Yeah, it's not just a static thing, it's always evolving.
They mirror those changes in society.
Exactly. And, one thing that really surprised me was when Avantika started talking about the therapeutic aspect of doll making.
Wait, therapeutic? How so?
Well, she talks about how the process of creating these dolls, especially using those traditional techniques, can be so meditative and calming.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Like the focus it requires.
Yeah, those repetitive movements, the connection to something tangible, creative. It's about slowing down, engaging your hands, letting your mind wander.
That's really interesting.
She even mentions how some people find it therapeutic to repair old dolls, you know?
Really?
Like breathing new life into something that was once broken.
There's something beautiful about that.
It really is.
Okay, so we've got this therapeutic side to it. But what about the history? How far back does this tradition go?
Centuries, like way back.
No kidding.
Avantika mentions archaeological evidence suggesting that dolls were being made in India as far back as the Indus Valley civilization.
Wow. That's over 5,000 years ago.
I know, it's incredible, right? It's this ancient craft that's been passed down through generations, carrying with it so many stories, so many experiences.
And it's still going strong today.
It is. And what's amazing is that despite all this time passing, a lot of these traditions have stayed remarkably resilient.
But I'm sure there have been some changes and adaptations over the years, right?
Oh, of course. Avantika talks about how the materials have evolved, for example.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, traditional materials like clay, wood, natural fibers, they're still being used.
Yeah.
But you also see dolls being made with more modern materials now.
Oh, like what?
Cloth, plastic, even papier-mâché.
Right, so they're adapting to the time.
Exactly. And even the designs, the styles, they've evolved too, incorporating those contemporary influences.
That's interesting.
But the core of it, the symbolism, the storytelling, the emotional connection, that's all remained intact.
It's like the heart of the tradition is still there.
Yeah. That's what's so powerful about it. It adapts, it evolves, but it doesn't lose its cultural significance.
Okay, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier.
What's that?
The therapeutic aspect of doll making.
Oh, right, yeah.
Does Avantika go into any detail about the specific techniques or processes that make it so therapeutic?
She does. She highlights things like hand stitching, embroidery, even the simple act of molding clay. She says those are particularly good for mindfulness and relaxation.
It's all about those slow, deliberate movements.
Exactly. Requiring focus, attention to detail. You're present in the moment, connected to the materials, just absorbed in that creative process.
I can see how that would be so grounding.
Yeah.
Especially in our world today where everything's so fast-paced and we're constantly bombarded with information.
It's his real escape.
It is. But you know what I also find so cool about this book? Is that it's not just about preserving these traditions for the sake of nostalgia.
Right.
It's about making them relevant, making them accessible for a modern audience.
And that's where the whole DIY element comes in.
Yeah. We talked about those instructions.
Yeah.
But I'm curious how Avantika approaches that challenge of adapting these traditional techniques for people like us today.
Oh.
Does she dumb things down?
Oh, no, not at all.
Or does she use like modern tools and materials?
She strikes this really beautiful balance. She stays true to those core techniques, uses the traditional methods as the foundation. But she also recognizes that people today might not have access to all those traditional materials or tools.
Right, like who has a hand loom just lying around their house?
Exactly. So she offers substitutions, adaptations, suggests materials that are easy to find but still capture the essence of the craft.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah. Like instead of a traditional hand loom for weaving, she suggests using a simple cardboard loom.
Okay, I can do that.
Anyone can make one at home.
It's like making it accessible without sacrificing that authenticity.
Exactly. And it's not just about practicality either. There's this element of creativity, personalization that she really encourages.
Oh, how so?
Well, she keeps saying that these instructions aren't meant to be rigid blueprints.
Yeah.
She wants people to experiment, add their own flair, use their imagination, really make the craft their own.
So it's not about creating like carbon copies of those traditional dolls.
No, it's about using those traditions as a starting point for personal expression.
Oh, I love that. It's like
Yeah.
honoring the past, but also embracing the present.
Exactly. Recognizing that traditions aren't static. They're alive, they evolve, they adapt. Each doll holds a whole universe of stories just waiting to be discovered.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not just about the objects themselves, it's about the stories they embody, the history they represent, the cultural values, the emotional connections they forge.
It's about recognizing that they're more than just toys.
Yeah.
They're windows into the heart and soul of a culture.
And through her book, Avantika has opened up that window for all of us.
She really has, giving us a glimpse into this world that's both ancient and modern, familiar and exotic, tangible and spiritual, all at the same time.
And she's done it with such passion, such respect for these traditions. But I feel like we've only scratched the surface.
Oh, we have. There's so much more to explore.
So much more. All right, well, let's take another quick break and then we'll come back for our final thoughts.
Sounds great.
It's amazing, isn't it? How these dolls we've been talking about, these seemingly simple toys, can hold so much meaning.
I know, it really makes you think about the power of tradition and how these objects connect us to the past.
Absolutely. And what I find really fascinating is how we've seen that these dolls aren't just stuck in the past. They've evolved over time. They reflect those changes in society and materials, even in the way we think about them today.
And you know what's really cool? It's this idea that by making these dolls, they're actually getting hands-on with these traditions.
Yeah.
We're keeping them alive. We're not just preserving something old. We're actively participating in something that's still going strong today.
That's such a great point. It's not just about looking back, it's about carrying these traditions forward. But before we wrap up our deep dive, I wanted to get your final thoughts. What makes this book, The Enchanted World of Indian Dolls, so special?
For me, it's the way Avantika brings together so many different things. You've got history, mythology, spirituality, artistry, even personal reflection. It's not just a textbook. It's a celebration of culture told through the heart.
I agree. It's that personal touch that really makes it stand out. And it's what makes it so easy to connect with, even if you're not familiar with Indian culture.
Totally. And it's that invitation to connect, to actually get involved and create. That's what I find so inspiring about this book.
It's empowering, isn't it?
It is. It's like she's saying, hey, you don't have to be an expert. You don't need years of training. Just jump in, explore, and see what you discover.
Exactly. It's about the process, the journey, not just the end result. So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired,
Yes.
I highly recommend checking out The Enchanted World of Indian Dolls by Avantika.
You can find it on Google Books or the Amazon Kindle store.
And as you dive into this world, remember that every stitch you sew, every piece of clay you mold, you're becoming a part of this incredible tradition, a tradition that stretches back centuries and continues to evolve today.
That's beautifully said. And on that note, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope you enjoyed exploring this enchanted world.
Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.